Our presenter will discuss this question. Please welcome Paul Böhm.
Oh, hi. Welcome to my presentation. I will start off quickly by introducing myself. So my name is Paul Böhm. I started off in the whole scene around here in 1998 when I founded a computer security group called TISO Security. We've been pretty active in doing exploit development, research, and stuff like that. And afterwards, I've been working as a security consultant for a while. But finally ending up doing other things like research in quantum cryptography and founding a local hackerspace in Vienna called the MetaLab. You've seen our telephone booth. The telephone booth actually is the MetaLab. The room to the right is just storage. So after all the security stuff, I had a lot of experience in software development, in breaking software and developing software, when I found one particular problem especially interesting, the problem of sorting, of finding relevant information, not by automated methods, by using computers that learn or stuff like that, but by simply looking at which stuff are your friends interested in. So what I wanted to do back in 2003 could have been seen as something like Digalicious. But Dig wasn't around back then, Reddit wasn't around back then. But eventually I failed, and I realized I failed because I didn't have the right social environment. I didn't have anyone to teach me the ropes of how to start a startup, of how to run things, of which things to do, which things are just stupid, like spending money, more money than you need in many ways. You don't need big venture capital to actually start something. And I made a lot of mistakes. Eventually I failed. And throughout the last 3 years, I've actively worked on thinking about why did I fail and how can I mitigate those factors which made me fail. So my talk today is about enabling innovation in Europe. And the first question most people ask me is why? Why would you want to enable innovation in Europe? And I think the technology is simply the driving force behind social change in our times. And you can't just ignore developments and complain about them. You need to create and shape technology. So I think the whole attitude that you often find also at places like here at the camp, that things like Web 2.0 is going to go away, I find is pretty much the same attitude that the general public has displayed towards the internet in the mid-90s. And I think even though there's a lot of buzzwords and marketing there really is something happening. Maybe it's not Web 2.0, but there is something happening that's changing our society through technology. And I think we need to shape this instead of just hoping it will go away. Nowadays, everyone can create technology that changes the world. Just think what happened with Napster. One simple piece of software disrupted a whole industry, multiple industries actually, and has had a really huge impact on the world. Just imagine what could have been different if some changes had been made to Napster, if it had been slightly different, had slightly taken a different approach. Maybe we would have less worries about the current copyright fights. It's really a matter of if you create it, you can shape it. And this is happening everywhere, but it's not happening as much as it could in Europe. Most of the really simple ICT startups that we see these days don't require a lot of research. They are simple implementations of new concepts, making things easier for users. They are not really research. They are not, by any means, they are not computer science or very hackish. The interesting part about those things is they change the way we interact with our world, and many of them have a tendency to become more valuable to the user the more users it has. This means creating one of these platforms makes it easier to get more and more users. And you have user login, you have network effects, and basically these are really simple things. I mean, just think about it. Flickr is just storing photos and so on. And we're not seeing a lot of that happening in Europe, actually. And thus I'm quoting from a report, which is one of the core documents of the European Union from 2006 by the former Finnish Minister President Esko Aho. And it's saying Europe and its citizens should realize that their way of life is under threat, but also the path to prosperity for research and innovation is open if large-scale action is taken now by the leaders before it is too late. It sounds melodramatic, but it goes further. This society, averse to risk and reluctant to change, is in itself alarming, but it is also unsustainable in the face of rising competition from other parts of the world. So basically, this report is a core document in the innovation policy of the European Union, and they are saying scary things. I don't know, maybe to scare us, but maybe they are going in the right direction, because changes often lag behind. So we are not seeing the effects yet of us losing technological connection to what's happening in the world. So what is happening on a government level in trying to make people like us, like you, to actually start startups and participate, because this is not just good for you, it's good for Europe and for also having our own mediums, having our own services that we use. Basically, they have something called Lisbon goals, which in a simplified way says 3% of the GDP of the European Union in total and of its participating countries should go into research and development. 3% of the European Union's GDP, that means 3% of 11.6 trillion euros, which is the largest economy in the world. And on a local level, we're doing the same thing, funding, founder consulting. Basically, you go to your local economics board, and there you can ask for advice, and they give you a date where you can come there in 3 weeks, and they give you more advice. And you're sent around, and there's incubators, which is pretty much babysitting of founders, and they select projects they can understand, and technology parks. And all these Lisbon goals lead to, because now you have to spend more. It's an EU directive, you have to spend more. This leads to bigger spending. Bigger projects, more money into each project, because the more projects you have, the more administration and the more work you have. So they try to have really few projects. There have been absolutely no changes in making it easier to just get a little bit of cash, like 20,000 euros. And spending a lot of cash isn't hard, spending it well is. So how does that work for ICT, Information and Communication Technologies? ICT is the fastest growing industry, has a multiple history of creating the greatest growth of wealth in human history. Just think of Microsoft and Google. Is the least development segment of the European innovation landscape and requires almost no cash to start. You wouldn't have needed much cash to start Flickr, to start PayPal, or any of these. You could have gotten a prototype, and then you could have gotten more cash. So what this is saying, Europe performs worst in just those segments where you need the least money. Throwing cash at the problem probably works great for biotech. I wouldn't know, but it certainly doesn't work for ICT. And what's happening right now is Europe has a lot of cash. We are a huge economy. We throw more and more cash at the problem, but it won't work, because more cash means you need bigger chunks of cash to distribute, and there's even less small money for small startups which just are starting out. So what is needed? Founders need to be among entrepreneurial-minded peers. I will get to that later on. And founders need to be able to work on their projects without distraction. So what's really needed is focusing on the founders, not on spending 3% of the GDP. This is not a goal. This is something you would like to. You would like to spend sensically a huge amount of cash on research, but just spending it is not good enough. And running around for 4 to 10 months trying to come up with some base cash so you can work undisturbed in a small team for a few months is not unbureaucratic. And working while you are starting a company isn't good either, because your boss will distract you. Doing another project before a real project to finance your real idea is also just distraction. What you really want is to just work on your project, and to get money easily, you would have to need access to founders who understand your idea and are really unbureaucratic about it. But we haven't had anyone successful enough, or not enough of these people, to get money from them. There's a lot of public cash, but well, we don't get it because you really have to be convincing on a marketing level, and techies seldom are this. And ideas, if people who don't understand technology give the money to technologists, well, then they can check if the ideas will actually work or make sense. So the need to see more startups. We don't need more cash. We are not incapable of building big startups, but we're simply neglecting helping people who want to start startups and inspiring them to start startups on a very small level with no cash requirements at the beginning. And what this boils down to is that entrepreneurial success is socially transmitted. If you put people who have the mindset of the people here together at one place, you're going to see really huge results, because these people exchange and learn from each other. And the same thing is true of innovation and startups and anything that can change the world, because if you put those people together, they will learn from each other and become together more effective. So what's special about Silicon Valley is not the venture capital, not the contacts, and nothing of that stuff. It's that they have the people that can inspire other people to do great things. In Europe, we have great people too, but a lot fewer have started and gained experience in starting their own projects. And you're just a lot less likely to know someone who has succeeded big in technology. If you walk around in San Francisco, you are very likely to meet all the time successful entrepreneurs, and you have to have friends who can give information to you on how to do your own thing or give you feedback on your ideas. Also, it is really tough to find a space to meet, work, or do projects at. Because in Silicon Valley, most of these startups like HP, Google, Apple, and so on started in garages. So you have a moderate climate, you can just go into a garage and you can start working there, and even in winter you put up a small heating and you can work there. It's really easy, you have the people and you have the place to work, really cheaply. So this is why they have startups. But we can turn those disadvantages into an advantage. And one of these things we came up with in Vienna is the MetaLab, which you have seen down the road where the telephone booth is. And basically the MetaLab doesn't have that much to do with startups or innovation. It's just a place where people can do things. And if people come together and do things, they meet each other, can learn from each other, and so on. So the MetaLab is located in Vienna, in the government district. So this is right next to the city hall and parliament. And we are providing physical infrastructure for projects. This means rooms and equipment. So we have an electronics lab, machinery lab, chemistry lab, a main room, room for presentations, a lounge where you can relax, chill out, smoke, a library, a media room, and a bar in the kitchen. And well, we have equipment there, also to pull people together and to help them run this place together with this. So electronics equipment, sensorics projects, robot construction projects, social software projects, brain science, all the stuff you see here at the camp basically. 3D printers, chemistry lab, cooking experiment, and we are cooking every Sunday in MetaLab. We're cooking, people are meeting and are enjoying themselves. Also, we have a gaming interest group. So I never figured out how to solve this, but I think this is how it works. We have a sleeping lab. We have talks. So this talk is about voting machines by a technical university professor. We have someone sitting here to the right, not on camera, from the National Assembly in Austria. We have technologists, professors, students, people from the city of Vienna there. So we are really in this government district to actually influence their policy and get into contact with them. We have lots of talks to bring people together and help them exchange. So we've had a meta day with people who are, part of them are sitting in the audience, for example, but on various hacking topics, on enabling spaces. This is someone from the Vienna University of Business, Economics. Is a talk about how space, physical space, can enable people to start innovation. This was our first Startup Friday talk about how to burn venture capital in the 90s, about wireless, about CA cert, data retention, spam fighting at the University of Vienna, and so on. We have other topics too, like Lisp, microcontrollers, directing films, securing various things, maths, and so on. Regular events, and so on. We also have sweatshops by children, for children, workshops, I mean. And Pirate Theater, which is a Monkey Island play we had at the Meta Lab a while back. Electronic experiments, cellular automatons, also as decoration for parties, LED throwies, city decoration projects, beautification, social networking analysis, experimental memetics, or theoretical, practical memetics, Go, and so on. So how does it work? How do we do this in Vienna? Well, we have 110 people who are members right now, and they pay 20 euros a month, which means we can pay our rent, and then we add as little bureaucracy as possible, and we have a self-financed place where people can work on their projects. And the really nice thing about this, people come together there and can exchange information with each other, and have some sponsors there to buy equipment or finance renovation of the lab. And then we started off with having, well, this. And with a lot of magic and hard work by people, we finally got there. We opened up and started with an accident of a different group. So the CCC, the Chaos Computer Club, wanted to come to Vienna at the same time when we opened up shop. But the place where this event should have happened, it wasn't finished yet. It wasn't renovated yet. So we got the key on the same day, and we decided, okay, let's do this at the Meta Lab. And 200 members of the CCC visited us in Vienna, and we built up this place and put wireless on the top of the building and had this conference. And then after some more work and decorating and so on, we came here to doing projects, getting more people there, starting startups, building communication infrastructure, building a wiki with information on the whole project, having mailing lists, communicating or building presentations together in collaborative text editors, having a Java server where everyone who signs up sees everyone else who is signed up. And we have 240 people on this Java server right now, which is an immense value to just staying in contact with the whole scene in Vienna. And, well, lots of self-built stuff like this clock and also parties. So, what it boils down to is, I think, what really matters for having cool new stuff and actually influencing the world we live in is to actively participate, create the things that are going to shape our future. Not saying, I don't use social networks or I don't use hosted webmail or this or that, but actively participating in shaping it and deciding the direction it takes. So, I'm making this short because it's just, it feels so huge to me, but what I'm really keen on is getting in contact with people who feel the same way about making a difference through actively starting projects, starting startups, and being a part of the change that is happening right now in different cities. Because in Vienna we've had really good success in talking to the city, to funding agencies, and to corporations in actually supporting this movement. We've even got support for coming here to this camp and financing people who couldn't afford to come here with us. And I think this is possible in different cities, and I think we might even make it easier to lobby on the level of the European Union if people from different countries came together and discussed these issues together. Well, that's about it. I'm sorry it got a little bit short, but I would be very interested in your questions.
Questions?
Hi, I'm from KSRF Dortmund, and I'm wondering how you get so much people together, because we're existing for at least, I think, 6 years. I'm not quite sure. And we're at maybe 30 people, but not 200. And Dortmund is not too much smaller than Vienna, so I'm really wondering how you get so much people together.
The question is, you're from Karlsruhe?
Sorry?
Where are you from?
Dortmund.
Dortmund. So the question is, why do we have so many people? I think one aspect is we just started out. We are, of course, benefiting a lot from there has been nothing in Vienna. You have had it for 6 years. There has been nothing in Vienna till last year. We just opened up on the 10th of April last year. And another factor which I think is really important is we are not trying to force any direction on what we are doing. We're saying this place is open for anyone who uses it productively, who creates things and also who shares some basic values of helping each other and exchanging with each other. And the main reason is really good people, like who really worked hard to make this happen. Going outside, making laser graffiti, making all this cool stuff which just inspires people.
Hi, sounds fantastic. I was just trying to imagine this happening in London and thinking about how it would be, but I had a few questions from that. One, do you have any idea of the demographics of your club? Like, I'd be interested to know whether people were in work, whether you had a lot of students, you know, what kind of makeup was there? And also, were there any problems that you'd suggest thinking about or talking about, you know, for groups trying to do a similar thing?
Well, I think we have pretty diverse demographics. We have people down to about 14 years, regular visitors, and up to, well, way above 60, I guess. We have about the same amount of women to men ratio as here, I guess. And we have many students, we have many unemployed. working unemployed. We have many people who do consulting. I think this could almost, it's quite a few people who do consulting in security, with Linux and systems. But we didn't really start out with a team. So the two biggest lessons I think we made is don't fixate your team immediately at the beginning. Don't ask who wants to do this, but start doing it and see who comes along for a few months and make regular meetings, keep people updated. Excuse me. And the second thing is don't try to prevent anything from happening before it happens. If a problem comes up, have faith in your community that you can fix the problem. But if you fix it beforehand, it's like putting a lot of advertisement and payment stuff on your growing website, and users are going to hate it. They are not going to come. Do everything you do, not to make money, not to finance it, not whatever, but to make people love your place, to really feel at home, to feel it's theirs. Because if they do, there's very little you can do wrong. Because if people love it, they will fight for it.
Hi. So I understand you provide an infrastructure for people to be creative, and so people start projects, but what I would like to know is how you provide a bridge to the business side. I mean, what kind of relations do you maintain businesses to ease these people to help start up a real business?
That's a really tough question in the sense that the whole concept of a community-run space pretty much is at odds with the concept of someone profiting of it. So, for example, it would be a really, really bad thing. A lot of people have gotten jobs through the MetaLab. One company, our first sponsor, got 5 employees within a few months from the MetaLab in the other direction. But it would be really bad if a person were to profit from the place, if I got paid or if something else. The same thing happens if a company I'm involved with gets too involved with the lab because of my position as, moderating within the community. If I were to take advantage of that, I would think that's really bad. That could kill the community. On the other hand, if we want to have projects start, and I'm interested in this, I'm working actively to network. So what we are doing is, as a MetaLab, nothing. What I'm personally trying to do is, on a mostly separate level, I founded a venture capital company which invests in the size of about 20,000 euros just to help people start their prototype. And I'm also I've built up a lot of contacts. I'm providing them. I have other partners along with contacts to different parts of business. But it's a tough question. It's just, you can't really do it without erring. I think, but with these things, you need to err on both sides. If you err on only one side, you know you're fucked.
You mentioned that the EU is practically swimming in entrepreneurs' money or founding money, but you need to be pretty big to start. Did you manage to tap that resource for really small startups?
Not really, because there's 2 things that get in the way of that. One of them is it's called, in our constitution, there's something called the equality Gleichheitsgrundsatz. Can someone translate that? Equality principle, yeah. So what this is saying is any funding by the public hand needs to be done on principles of objective criteria. You need objective criteria, and this is the enemy of any kind of innovation, because we cannot categorize innovative things. Bureaucrats don't understand innovative things, so they cannot use objective criteria. So you have a lot of bureaucracy, you have pages. I think it's at least for one of the funding programs we have in Vienna, it's 30 pages just to explain to the jury on how they have to make the decision. They don't make the decision because they like the startup. They have criteria and points to give out, and it's really complicated. And the second factor is, and it's if they were to fund a risk capital company and provide money to them, they can't do that because there's an EU directive against that. So you cannot use this public money in unbureaucratic ways, and this way it never ends up with the people who need it in an unbureaucratic way. But on the other hand, there are game theoretic analysis of the whole problem situation, that it's better to invest many small amounts of money without any control than to invest a huge amount of money with stringent controls. Bureaucrats want control. They want to control the money they invest or any kind of investors. But it's better to just give out small amounts of money and see what happens. You don't need to control them. If 90% fail, the 10% who don't fail, it's fine. It will help Europe as a whole.
How did you find a place that is this big? It's a big risk for the landlord to give it to such an unstable or innovative project.
A lot of luck.
Okay.
We searched for 7 months, but it was a lot of luck on so many levels. Someone parked his car there. We knew it was private owned, and one of the people involved in the MetaLab went to school with the son of the woman selling the place for the owners, whatever. A lot of luck.
So this project is going for more than a year now. Are there any results visibly yet?
There are 2 startups which are in a closed beta. If you come up to me afterwards, I can show you one of them. And we are planning to repeat the whole, well, there are more than that without funding. It should be about 5 projects. None have launched yet because we only started with this whole startup thing 3 months ago or so. Because if you get a new place, you spend so long to build up infrastructure for organizing it, for managing it, for renovating it, because we did it all ourselves. So within the last 3 to 4 months, about 5 startups started, and I'm pretty confident they are not social networking sites. Okay, thank you very much.